and welcome to Because School Means More, the podcast where we explore what true inclusion looks like in schools and how we can make it a reality. Each episode will share real stories, practical strategies and insights from schools that are leading the way in inclusive education. Whether you're an educator, a parent or someone passionate about inclusion, this podcast is for you. Everyone is welcome here. Because School Means More is brought to you by the Inclusion Partnership. My name's Jo Wilkinson and I'm the Inclusion Partnership Manager and podcast host. I'm joined by some co-hosts and guests for each episode. Our mission is to create real change by building an inclusion movement, a network of schools and organisations committed to inclusive relationships and inclusive provision for every child. Join us as we break down barriers, share success stories and work together to build schools where everyone belongs.
Because school means more.
Okay, let's make a start. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today at Because School Means More. We've got another brand new episode to talk about all things inclusion. So I'll start by introducing myself. I am Jo Wilkinson, the Inclusion Partnership Manager and host of this podcast. I'm going to hand over to my co-host, Graham.
Hi, I'm Graham Ferguson. I'm head teacher of the virtual school in Derby City, part of the Inclusion Partnership.
And today we're joined by Littleover Community School. So are you happy to introduce yourselves, guys?
Yeah, I'm Mark Pestell. I'm assistant head teacher for Key Stage 3 and inclusion lead at Littleover Community School.
And I'm Caroline Spalding, deputy head teacher for curriculum, quality of education, teaching, learning, staffing and lots of exciting things.
Wow, I think that probably wins the longest job
Absolutely.
title award then. We've had some long ones before.
We have.
So that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And great to have you here, Caroline, particularly because we're going to focus around the curriculum as part of today's podcast. So let's start with spinning our wheel and doing a couple of check-in questions, shall we? So do you want to spin it first, Graham? And you can ask the first question. On the last one, question 12.
So question 12 is beach holiday or city break?
City break every time. Culture, food, good wine. What's not to like?
Yeah, city break. I think having I like the people watches you in a new location as well and getting as much different food from the local area as you possibly can.
Great. Have you got one, Graham, out of this?
It would be city break. Yeah, it would be city break. Seeing somewhere new. I get bored sitting on a beach, to be fair.
Yeah, the idea of a beach for the first day or two, lovely. Or at the end of a city break, maybe. But definitely like to be able to get out and about and see stuff and take the atmosphere in a bit. But great. Okay, let's spin it once more then. Go on, Mark. Ooh. Question 3. Right, back to my first sheet. So, question 3. Here we go. What's your favourite thing to do in the school holidays?
Oh, now there's a question.
I then think my honest answer is nothing at times.
Yeah, fair enough.
The older I get, the more doing nothing is a genuine thing to do.
A real privilege.
Yeah, I'd say probably an afternoon to start doing Lego with my little boy.
Nice.
I also have a very young child, a 5-year-old, similar to Mark. So yeah, absolutely. Quality family time. I have just bought a very tiny caravan. So lots of road trips and adventures to follow. Very friendly, called Titch. She is a tiny caravan. So yeah, hopefully lots of adventures in that.
I feel a podcast coming on just about the little caravan called Titch. That sounds amazing. Nice, brilliant. Right. Let's get started properly then by just hearing a little bit give us a quick sort of snapshot of your school and the makeup of it.
So we're a large local authority secondary school, just over 1,800 students, including our sixth form. So 10 form intake, which can bring its own challenges around inclusion because of numbers. Really, really diverse catchment. So we pick up from quite a large area of our side of Derby, over 50 home languages spoken, various different socio-economic backgrounds as well. So yeah, but what we are is we aim to really embody that diversity. I think is part of what makes us so inclusive in our very nature as well, and how we approach a lot of things that we look at from curriculum, pastoral, and every single other thing in between.
So you do know, Mark, that as line manager of languages, our curriculum coordinator for language, Dawn Piper, would not forgive you if you didn't mention that we are a language hub. So we have language hub status of one of only 14 schools who work with the NCLE, really to promote languages, both modern foreign language, but also home heritage community languages. So it really is part of our DNA.
Okay.
What I would say is that even in my relatively short time at Littleover, so I'm on year 4 as deputy head teacher, we've also seen a real change to our intake, like many schools have. So from 13% pupil premium, for example, when I first joined, to now 26, 27% in our new year 7 cohort. And also in terms of SEND and the level of need and some of the additional students are joining us with, we are absolutely responding to in terms of, again, just having inclusion at our heart.
So you've described some of those challenges already, but what are the additional challenges on top of that? What does that present for you that you've got to try and overcome?
I think for us, it's really been going almost back to the start in terms of, our values. So absolutely, started by our former head teacher. So we've had a new head teacher and some fairly unusual change for Littleover, really, because, staff at Littleover tend to stay. So the head teacher was there for 26 years. The deputy head teacher who also left at a similar time for new kind of challenges. Really, that encapsulates our staff body. I think that also presents opportunities. So what we've very much done, again, is just go back to being really open-minded about what inclusion looks like. I do think sometimes with Littleover, people see the percentage in terms of, for example, SEND and think, well, it's significantly below national average. But because of the size and scale of our school, the biggest Derby City secondary, I believe, that means we do have significant numbers of students, even if actually they're a smaller percentage of the cohort. So to go back to what I said, I think it's about trying to really be open-minded, creative solutions, and making sure that we are proactively kind of thinking about what the next few years look like for the school.
So with the changes then, Caroline, in the cohort and the makeup of that cohort, how's that influenced your decisions about what the curriculum looks like?
Well, to give a really tangible example, we've got a proud legacy of a really, highly academic school with, really above average numbers doing that very traditional kind of like EBAC curriculum. So it's still 70-80% of each year group. And we still believe right for the vast majority of our students, but not all. And for the first year this year, for example, we've had a nurture group, which are students who really benefit from a different type of environment, a different type of curriculum. And that's something new for us. Now, like every school, we have to consider what that means financially, operationally. We're all working within, considerable constraints in terms of budget. But that would be one example, I think, where we've tried to find the right solution for students. And
is that with the current year 7s, or is that
current year 7s, and we also recognise that a number of those students will grow. So we are now looking into year 8, for example. We don't think that need will disappear given the changes that we are seeing. Our emphasis will always be on removing access to the mainstream curriculum. So even within our nurture group, those students are attending a number of mainstream lessons, but it's making sure that actually they also have the secure base and that extended transition from primary school. So we're very lucky. We actually have a former bungalow. It was a home for many years on the school site that we've now got, and that's set up like a primary classroom. It's got a sensory space as well, so there is a familiar base for those students and a consistent HLTA who is always with them and working with them. And we can respond because of that base as well. So, the aim would be they would be in a mainstream classroom with adapted pedagogy, but also we have the ability to flex and recognising that actually that transition can work both ways.
Great.
And how do you identify the children that could benefit from that provision?
So really excellent transition. So I'll pass over to Mark to talk about that because that's very much part of his remit.
It's that communication with primary schools is absolutely integral to that. I think something via the inclusion partnership of those key principles that really sticks out to me at various different points is that supporting need at the point of need. You've got to understand the need so you can find out where that point is and then what is you going to do about it. So I think when we're looking at how that's mapped out as far as provision with the transition portal, with highlighting those EII students, that's a key part of that. Making sure that all those key stakeholders in school are involved with that as well, whether that be our heads of year who will be leading that year group, DSL, Senko, making sure all those key players have got a really good oversight of that need. And then you can start to highlight what it is we're going to need to do. As Caroline says, what resources have we got to do that? Who are the staff that are best placed to do that? And I think it's just those really honest, open conversations with our primary colleagues as well. I think the one thing that can't be lost on any of us is that the current staff are the experts in those young people. Where we, in our teaching in secondary school, we may see a student 2 or 3 times over a fortnight based on our timetable. Their primary school teachers have been seeing them day in, day out in whole hosts of different situations. Whereas I might be told that a student is thriving in one area and struggles in another, I'm told that they are seeing that as well. So I think that is a real key aspect to highlight it. I think one of the key data points that really helps to do that as well is highlighting the reading age and understanding, you know what, this is how our curriculum shaped, this is what those resources look like. What is that young person actually able to understand about what they're being told and what they're being asked to read before they even get that learning point? And then also highlighting what they understand around social behaviours and all those other parts as well, understanding what their experience has been like of education, what that may be when they transition to us as well. So yeah, highlighting all those various different things so we can understand what that need is so we can support it.
Well, 2 things I'd just like to pick up on that I think Mark said that's really key. And one is about the partnership work between staff in schools. And I say that sat here as a curriculum lead with a pastoral senior leader. And one of the things that we've really consciously done is look at ensure we don't work in silos and we see all aspects of a child. So, for example, the pupil premium leadership has traditionally sat with myself. And we now have a pupil premium lead team, which includes Mark as head of inclusion. It includes the Senko. It includes our DSL, our safeguarding lead. And we meet at key points throughout the year to ensure that strategy reflects all needs of disadvantaged and our vulnerable students. And similarly at transition, you heard Mark talk about reading age, which is very much sits under my remit. And we recognise that is a really critical facilitator for access to the curriculum. So we, again, in terms of what have we changed, we've really invested in targeted academic interventions, getting off the cycle of Key Stage 4 and panic stations for Year 11. And really where we've realigned is looking at the role of those HLTAs, that there's really investing them in terms of the skill set, ensuring we've got the real capacity within that team to not just look at Year 7, for example, but if I pick something like handwriting, for example, as well, a really critical skill, it's all year groups. And it's a really strategic programme, and it's using best practice from the likes of the EEF to really implement and ensure it's robust and fit for purpose. So I think in terms of what I want to pick up, it's that joined up thinking. It's ensuring that academic and pastoral, as I said, aren't in silos, and that you're really thinking about the whole child and any barrier that they might face to success.
And if you were to think about a particular child without naming names, is there a bit of a story that you want to share about a young person or some children that have benefited from that approach?
I think there's one that springs to mind, and I'm not sure it will take too long for Caroline to think about who I'm talking about as well. But we had one young person who's joined us this year who their ability to get through the school day, how they viewed the school day was very, very different. And a lot of their behaviours would then present as defiance or just as pure poor behaviour. And then when we're applying normal expectations as far as homework and learning, and you know what, you've now got detention because that didn't happen, and then we go, well, you're not necessarily coping in that situation as well. And actually when we started to unlock what the day is like for them, having that communication with parents, thinking through that lens, through that young person's lens of how they're approaching it and making some of those adjustments. Did you know what, this hasn't happened, but rather than your detention, we're going to sit and we'll spend some time doing your homework for you. That young person, Caroline, had set a written task, and it really showed us when they were asked to write about something that meant something to them, what their actual capabilities were. And when we started to be able to kind of look at that in a bit, when we have that better understanding of that young person, the progress we have seen from them in their engagement in school, their enjoyment of school, their wanting to be in school, has just continued to rise exponentially. And where that young person is now compared to where they were back in September is huge progress. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. but we're not after
Nothing's
perfection. We're after
perfect, is it?
progress. It's
Yeah.
that mantra that we have constantly. But actually, that young person is now happier in school. They want to be in school. They want to be in their lessons. And when something goes wrong now, rather than being dysregulated and this is all terrible, they're disappointed and they want to, how can I do better? So yeah, I think that is a key part of that, is having all that key information, but then thinking, right, what do we do when the normal, a lot of our things that we have in place is our normal systems. It's one size fits most. And we then have to look at what we do beyond that and what are those reasonable adjustments so that they might be accessing the school day and all those systems in a different way, but they're accessing it in a way that gives them an equal and, well, an equitable chance for success.
Yeah.
The one that jumps out to me is that our year 10 were the first to benefit really from our really rigorous kind of reading intervention. And I know we have year 10 students who in that first year went from a reading age of 6 to a reading age of 10. And what that ultimately means is they become functional readers. And now watching them engage with GCSE courses, one of which I teach, and that's an absolute delight, being able to now teach them GCSE media studies. The other is routinely an ambassador for us with visitors, and the impact on her self-esteem. And it's almost a snowball then, you've got the golden ticket, haven't you, to access. And what you do with that, now we are seeing the kind of fruits of the labour. And, in terms of us as leaders in schools, and let's be blunt about it, it's a difficult job at times. They're the things that get you out of bed in the morning. They are the ones that will stay with you about why it's worth it in the end, ultimately.
And I love that, because I was going to ask you about how that increases that young person's engagement in school and their learning. And you've talked about that, but you've gone that a stage further, which is the stuff that we want to hear about, the heart side of it, around enjoyment, happiness, self-esteem, confidence.
Yeah, I guess a question that
what
comes
we
to my
wanna see.
mind is fun in the curriculum. Should the curriculum be fun? Because we hear a lot of stories around the curriculum is set and we've
The
got to
exam
do this,
factory
we've got to
and-
do that. But where do you see the fun element and the enjoyment element of the curriculum coming through?
This is going to segue slightly, but one of my best friends is a careers changer. So she's in her 40s. She's worked in hotels most of her life. She's now an ECT over in a school in Nottingham. And what I've been struck by is how much she enjoys her job. And I'm delighted because I finally feel like she gets why I sort of rave about teaching. I also think back to my former school, Benrose, who had an Ofsted inspection a few years ago that said there is much joy in this school. And Littleover is no different, and our lessons are no different. And really what we are incredibly lucky to have is an amazingly experienced staff body. Our head of science will wax lyrical about the hundreds of years experience we have within our science team. It does give us another challenge around when eventually everybody decides to retire. But what that means is you have got people who love their subject, who are lucky enough to work with some wonderful young people who, we are very lucky in terms of our behaviour and the culture within our school. So, in terms of that joy within the curriculum, it comes from our amazing staff. It comes from passion for their subject. It comes around supportive systems that enable them to share that. In terms of inclusion, valuing children as young, interesting, quirky individuals absolutely lets you see beyond the immediate, which could be for some young people those immediate barriers and behaviours that you see. Because by the very nature we're a local authority school, we have a lot of freedom to set our own destiny, and our teachers get a lot of autonomy about how they teach. So our teaching and learning policy is 10 bullet points long, very intentionally. It's drawn from Shima Mora's Marge model of metacognition, just in case you wanted to know. But that means that, again, there is that sense of teachers feeling like they have got that, ability to segue, to follow their interest, to stop and share, that hinterland knowledge, which gets us all fired up. And I hope any visitor to the school would see that really, clearly and vocally as they're going around.
And obviously you've talked about, you had teacher that worked for 26 years at the school and a deputy head that was there long term, and talked about other heads of department that are there long term. And clearly there's change when people move on, but it sounds like there's true legacy from that work. And this is a sign of living and breathing that inclusive culture, isn't it? That work continues and develops and evolves from then and continues to be embedded. So it sounds like there's some really great examples of really dedicated, passionate, committed staff. And I think the point you made, Caroline, about not working in silos was a really key point. And it's something we pick up externally all the time about the work that we're doing and the partners and the collaborative approach, that if we don't join up, we're not united in what we're trying to achieve together. And it sounds like that's happening with you.
So just take it a step further. You know, I started 21 years ago as a trainee teacher at Littleover. I've gone to work at 4 other schools across Derby and Derbyshire in that time. And, you know, on a personal note, it's beyond our school. And I'm really passionate about networks, as I know Mark is too. So this year we've set up the Derby City Middle Leaders Programme, which has been an amazing thing to be part of and came out of the Quality of Education Network. So, you know, I've kind of coordinated it, but it certainly hasn't been, you know, my idea. It hasn't been, you know, solely me. It's been run and developed by 8 different people who've led the sessions, but we think we've had 13 schools actually attend, which is amazing. And just, I think it's testament to the fact that there is a real collective sense in Derby City, as highlighted through the Inclusion Partnership, to work together beyond school type, beyond academy chain, beyond local authority, beyond different contexts, you know. As you'll be aware, Benrose is very different in terms of makeup to Littleover. But we still come together as one. And exactly. And by the very nature that I was there for so long, you know, we've had 2 of their staff over today for A-level moderation.
Right.
That's how it should be, because ultimately we're all in it for Derby City children.
And that's music to my ears, because that's exactly what we're trying to do together, isn't it? To improve those outcomes for children and young people. And the key learning indicators that we talk about quite a lot through our inclusion strategy group are the things that are the challenges that every school is facing around attendance, suspensions, exclusions, elective home education, part-time timetables. How important do you think it is that the curriculum is adaptive and is flexible to try and meet those challenges? Is that something you see as being important for you?
It's exactly what Mark said of, you know, one size fits most.
Yeah.
I think it's important to me that there is also an equity of access to powerful knowledge, you know, so to reference the likes of Mary Myatt, for example. And I would always come from the starting point of, if it's good enough, if we think this is important for some children to know, then it's important for all children to know. However, how that's met, how that's encountered, how we remove the barriers has got to look different.
Yeah.
And, you know, curriculum is I've said this numerous times as we look at curriculum plans with heads of subject, it's like painting the Forth Road Bridge. You know, we have had a white paper that, like every school, we are looking at how we respond to. If anything, I'd like more information, because I think there's some great stuff in there that we'd like to be able to start responding to. Absolutely. So will our curriculum offer say static? I'm sure it won't, and I'm not sure it should do, but it's got to evolve and it's got to respond, and you know, context is really important. Who your children are and what that offer looks like, I think we're ever reflecting upon.
I think ultimately, when we look at the school day, students spending most of their time in a classroom engaging in education. So to come back to kind of what Graham says, I think often when people hear about should it be fun, people will think about the gamification of things or the having a joke. And actually, that's not necessarily what fun is. If you're enjoying being in there, you are having fun. If you are leaving with a new interest in something, you are having fun. And if you want, if the place you are going each day is somewhere you enjoy being, you enjoy absorbing knowledge, you experience success, you are more likely to want to go there. And yes, we absolutely recognise there are then countless other barriers that may not be what is in that young person's head first thing in the morning. That may not what be is in the heads of the parents who are trying to get their young people into school in the morning as well.
Or even the members of staff. You know, we've all got challenges that we have to deal with to get there. But yeah.
But if you've got that those kind of core values underpinned, and that is a rewarding and enriching, a worthy experience in every single lesson, we've addressed a big part of that battle, I think, straight away.
I'd use an example. So let's take Shakespeare. You know, as it's that word alone has got so many connotations of it. And if you are a student who's maybe not into, oh great, I've got Shakespeare first thing Monday morning. Well, you know what? We had a theatre group in this week to deliver it, getting the students up and about. And one of the reasons we invest in that is because if you'd seen students actually engaging with that workshop, that was awesome and it was fun. And actually, you know, I still get a thrill from delivering Romeo and Juliet after 21 years of doing it pretty much every single year, because actually I've got a passion for it, and then that's my job, isn't it, to instill and pass that on. Here.
I love it. Yeah, sounds really special. So obviously, clearly we don't completely know how things are going to develop over time, but if you had a crystal ball, where would you see this curriculum offer going? What do you think is next for you and your school?
I think in terms of those targeted academic interventions, we are still have really ambitious goals. So we were really inspired by a visit to Trinity Wakefield a couple of years ago, where that they have the ambition that every child leaves not just a functional reader, but actually a fluent and confident reader, reading in line with their chronological age. And that really is where we want to be. You know, we want all of our young people to leave with the currency around the grade 4 in English and maths. That's, I think, a real ambition, but that's where I want us to be going. And therefore, we are constantly in review of being unsatisfied at the level of impact until we ultimately get there. I think the white paper, we are, as I mentioned, a language hub, and we are really conscious around, you know, detaching, for example, some of our pathways to that. And I think that will have to be really carefully managed. Equally, we are excited about some of the opportunities for the creative arts. We're quite unusual in that we teach drama, art and music as discrete subjects at Key Stage 3, so not on a carousel, and that affords some amazing opportunities for inclusion. You know, we're really looking at how we supplement that, for example, with tutoring. So there's a young man who's just started drum lessons. There's a young man who's just started keyboard lessons who, you know, may not actually achieve GCSE, but they are going to leave with some real enriching skills, which are amazing for their well-being, their self-esteem, their interests. And clearly in terms of accountability measures, also starting to reflect those qualifications. That's quite exciting for us. But I say that with, like you said, a lot of unknowns. Yeah. And really what that pans out for, it'll be, what I'm delighted is we have things like the Quality of Education Network, where we can speak really candidly to other people in my position with responsibility for the curriculum, to share ideas, to consider how each school is approaching it for their context.
Great.
One thorny issue then, AI and the use of AI in school. How do you think that's going to impact on the curriculum, and what safeguards are you putting in place to, I guess, counteract some of the copy and paste?
Or embrace it in places? Or...
Yeah, copy and paste answers in, or actually, is there a power in AI to enhance learning?
Absolutely. So I come at this from kind of a couple of points of view. Firstly, I teach product design. I teach fashion and textiles. So I've got that creative industries look towards AI as well as what's in school. However, it depends what you view it for. It's a research tool. It's not a doing tool.
So to respond to that, we've set up a digital strategy group who are meeting at regular points throughout the year, with recognition that there are far-reaching effects. So our safeguarding lead, our network manager, our heads of subject, our ICT leads, myself from a teach and learning point of view, you know, if you consider the number of school policies that AI has got some ramification for, it's actually quite staggering. And we've recognised that really there needs to be a coherent response. So those policies talk to one another in a really logical and sensible way. I think Mark's nailed it when he said it's a tool, and no tool is inherently bad or inherently good. I am clearly super excited from a staff workload point of view, and that is always going to be something that we need to work really closely with staff and union representatives on, because I passionately believe our staff are our greatest asset, and we are so lucky. And we want, if there is a way of making this job more achievable in terms of I'm interested here. And I know there's some local schools doing really interesting things around mock marking and also the feedback to students and staff. I'm a bit more hesitant. I'll let them, work out some of the thorny problems rather than being the early adopters. But we've got staff in-house doing wonderful things around knowledge retrieval, worksheet generation, adaptive teaching. I mean, RTAs are lucky to have an iPad, and watching them figure out actually how they can really quickly and easily adapt for students is pretty awesome. And, you know, again, talking about assets within school, your TA team having those knowledge and skills and being able to upskill the teachers is fantastic. I think in terms of that communication with students, it's being really, the big one for me would be around something like revision. So we almost use it, we've talked about a traffic light system with them. NEA course, it's red. Absolutely not, you know, and we've shared with them the JIQ regulations around, even if you suspect there is AI use, you've got a mandate to investigate and treat it as such. Revision, green for creation of the resources, but I'll use flashcards as an example. AI can generate you a series of flashcards, let's say on quotations from Macbeth. You can tell I'm an English teacher. But it can't do the hard work of actually using them and transferring that information to your long-term memory. So it's showing them that. And in terms of, you know, resources, it could create a resource, but who has the knowledge and the skill to quality assure
that
it?
resource, absolutely.
And I'll use an example from my own teaching. So I have to teach the Sweeney, so from the 1970s, and we only teach the first 10-minute extract. This is GCSE media now. I equally thought it would be very helpful to have a summary of the 1 hour episode. Great, I'll get AI to generate it for me, save me an hour of my life watching this, quite dodgy crime drama. Equally, I quickly spotted it got the names of some of the characters wrong.
Right.
And so, you know, that is a tangible example of where it's not giving you back. It comes across as very convincing, and the vast majority was okay. But actually, you know, that is the skill of the teacher, isn't it? Of actually then taking that and going, well, A, is it accurate? B, is it fit for purpose? Is it doing the job? It comes with caution. But I think in terms of us managing that, I think we don't want to squash or crush, you know, staff creativity. We have got people in our schools doing wonderfully exciting things. I think it is being mindful with anything about that quality assurance of what's the output and what does that mean. And have we given due consideration to things like GDPR, data protection impact assessments?
It's a whole other can of worms, isn't it?
It's not the one that gets you up and up and raring to go in the mornings, but clearly it's really critical to be mindful of. And we're very lucky to have a network manager and operations manager who are all over that in terms of staff training and messaging.
Great.
I feel like that could be a whole other podcast to talk AI, but it very much relates to what we've talked about today. Yeah. So thank you. If we've got listeners and people in schools that were considering their curriculum and what they need to do to adapt it to meet need at the point of need. So if they're thinking, actually, you know, we've got a model here where one size fits most, but what do we need to do differently? What sort of top tips would you give them, or what steps would you suggest they look at?
I think it's understanding your school context. What works for us. And some of that will work elsewhere. But I think the one thing that I found, Karen, as I was saying about coming from different schools and experiencing that, I've been at Littleover my whole career. I did my one of my PGC placements at Littleover. The thing I've massively valued from the inclusion partnership and being able to attend a lot of that CPD is speaking to other colleagues, cherry picking what might work, there, holding those certain groups of students in mind who maybe you've not quite found what is working for them. Absolutely taking those opportunities to learn from what other schools are doing.
Thanks for dropping in about the support that the Inclusion Partnership provide there around. And it's all about that, isn't it? About sharing those challenges and solutions together as a network, isn't it? And I think that's what's been a real strength of the work that we've done together.
Yeah.
Something that you're most proud of around this work that you're doing at school?
Oh, that gives you a pause for thought.
Yeah,
I was deep in my own answer to the previous question, if I'm honest. It was what I was reflecting on. I think I got an email, and this I hope this doesn't sound too boastful, but I got an email from a parent actually this morning, and it said, I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember exactly, but that I appreciate that Littleover is a school that actually is student-centred. And this was off the back of quite, a challenging and complex situation with a young person who's really finding, life quite difficult at the moment. And I thought, that's really powerful. And actually that parent has really recognised that we don't get things right all the time, actually. This was an instance when actually I certainly, I'm not sure I did, but the conclusion was the right one, and I felt like we'd really communicated our values in terms of that child-centered approach, and to speak to inclusion more broadly, it starts with that really understanding of that young person. It's then being really open-minded and at times creative about the solutions to meet those needs, and the outcome and the joy, to go back to what we were talking about earlier, is then finding that right fit.
Yeah.
And that is going to look different, and accepting that is going to different, maybe to what you initially thought, but also in terms of what is offered to other students. So.
And that's a true relational approach, isn't it? And that phrase child-centred happens to be part of our inclusion charter as well. So that was lovely the way you got that one in as well. Another thing we talk about sometimes is meeting former pupils. So bumping into a 25-year-old former pupil. What would you like to see or hear from them?
This happened to me about 3 weeks ago. A student who was in one of my year groups bumped into him Tesco car park on the way home. And the first thing is often, you don't remember me, do you? And I was like, absolutely I do.
And that would have meant the world.
It was just that individual. I think they wrote just 2 or 3 complete nonsensical little anecdotes that they remember from their time at school.
Nice.
But they were positive in what they were reflecting on. I think we can all think, and there's some CPD we did a couple of years ago, we spoke about, think about that one thing the member of staff said to you that switched you off to them or made you disengage with their subject. Think about that one thing member of staff said to you that is still that positive thing you take through with you. And I can guarantee to any teachers listening, you will not remember those things that you said that had that impact on those young people. I think if you can bump into someone and they want to come and talk to you about their time at school, that success is absolutely massive. Yeah.
I've got a letter in my desk drawer from a young woman who I actually taught over in Chesterfield. She took the time to find out the address of Benrose and send me a letter there. And she'd found school really hard, and she desperately wanted me to know she was now a policewoman. And the thing I took from that, she wanted me to know she was happy.
Yeah.
And what do I want from young people? It's exactly what Mark said. I want them to have really happy and successful lives, and in all its forms. Yes, absolutely success in terms of the future progression, careers, education, employment, training, but more fundamental than that, actually they're getting happiness and joy from their lives.
Love it.
Great.
And hopefully there'll be many more opportunities where you meet other students in years to come and have that special moment to understand and appreciate why you do the job ultimately. So it's been really lovely to sit and listen, actually. So we're coming to the end in terms of some of the information and some of the questions. So one question for you, and you might want to pause and have a little bit of a think, but if you had a motto for inclusion as a school, what would that motto be? And you might have different mottos based on your own thoughts.
Our school motto, if you like, is learning, caring, succeeding. And I don't think it's an accident that it is in terms of it works Littleover Community School, but caring is at its heart, and really caring about the children in front of you, I think, is absolutely critical. I think you've said yours multiple times today, Mark, in terms of one size fits most. But
yeah, I think we've got to be fluid in everything we do, I suppose. And I suppose that is that one thing. I'm not quite sure how to motto it, but we've got to have that understanding that we've got to be fluid to the responsibility. So I think one size fits most perhaps is the best thing from that point of view. I think I'm gonna catch one from the inclusion partnership. School means more. Like it isn't just about what we do in our lessons, it's about every single aspect of that. I think one of my favourite parts of the week is standing on gate duty on a Friday morning. There are kids that come in and they're happy and they say hello to you and they'll talk to you about what we do in the weekend on their way into school after 4 days at school already, and they're happy to come in. And there are some students when we get to the end of half term, they're happy to be coming back as well. So I'm going to steal straight for the inclusion. I'm going to go school means more.
And you've talked a little bit, but just to make us feel better, tell us a little bit about how the Inclusion Partnership is supporting you as a school.
I think the CPD offer has been absolutely fantastic. I had the fantastic opportunity to get to go to visit Carl Manor School, who I'm sure colleagues at Littleover are bored of me talking about at times. Those opportunities to get out, speak to other colleagues from other schools as well. I think the joined up nature of some of the network meetings as well, the fact that when I go to our designated teachers network meeting, I'm not only getting the chance to speak to Graham and colleagues from the virtual school, but those chances to kind of troubleshoot those things with those staff and with staff from other schools, I think has been amazing. Some of the support that's been in place for other colleagues around school, when I think about our attendance staff, what's been open to them with far as the EBSNA and the Attend framework going on, the fact that we can direct other staff towards some of those courses around relational approaches, around our use of language, the fact we've been able to get our own CPD off the back of those things, getting them bring that into school as well. I think that's been amazing. Looking ahead to the Common Closure Day and actually realising that we're all in this together. We've got our community of Littleover and wider, but we're part of that bigger picture for Derby as well. And a lot of the challenges we face are the same. Many of them are the same, but different with our context. So yeah, that genuine network, I think, is absolutely fantastic, and the opportunity that brings are really, really positive.
Oh,
yeah, and
brilliant.
I think, and certainly that's something I think as an inclusion partnership we want to include everyone in the city.
We do,
and bring that collegiate approach and understanding and facilitation, which is great.
And for us to be able to keep putting a spotlight on our schools in Derby, to share that practice and to share what you might think is, it's nothing new or nothing amazing. And lots of schools say when we invite them to be part of the podcast or to be part of a film or conference, they say, well, it's nothing amazing, and it's not like a mega piece of work, but actually it's the small things that can make a big difference, isn't it? And I think for us to be able to hear more and more from all of our schools in the city is amazing, for us to be able to share that across, and long may that continue.
Absolutely.
Right, should we spin the wheel for a couple of checkout questions, Graham? Do you want to spin? And
I'll go for one.
Number 12.
Ooh, number 12.
Oof. If you could sum up your school in one word, what would it be? Only one word this time.
Genuine is one that actually it does jump straight out, and it sounds cheesy, but community.
Yeah.
I can remember, when I first saw, I was at Littleover Community School. When I was on my first PGCE play, I thought, what's a community school?
Yeah.
And it doesn't, in that sense, it doesn't necessarily have to mean anything.
And quite a lot that were original community schools have dropped the name community, haven't they?
But
now?
actually, I think the number of meetings that we have where we talk about the impact on our community, we talk about stakeholders. That's very much that business end, but we're talking about community.
You are a community.
When we're talking about how a form group fits into the wider year group, that's our community.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that genuine aspect of community and where everyone's place is, where everyone's role is, what everyone contributes towards that. But also communities support each other. And I think that happens every single level as well. We are there to support our young people and our families. They are also there to support us and each other as well.
I'm going to go for ambitious. And I mean that both in the sense of the pride of the legacy of our academic outcomes, but also ambitious for every single young child and what that looks like. And as I've mentioned, a dissatisfaction actually, because we still have the within school gaps, and we still want, like I talked about earlier, more for every single child. So I hope that's, speaks to both probably the reputation that Littleover's got, both positively and maybe not so positively, in terms of what it means to us,
Right.
Love it. Come on then, let's
So,
spin
Mark,
it one
you do
last
one.
time,
You do
Mark.
one, Mark.
Okay.
Graham, you can ask the question. Or let's go question
just
one.
crept in. What's the one thing you hope every pupil takes with them from your school? Ooh.
Silence.
Well, I
Wondering.
only because I feel like I would repeat what I've already said. So I would hope that they would take with them a legacy of actual of enjoyment, first of all, of actually that thinking fondly of their time at Littleover, but also the strategies and the currency to enable them to have a really long, happy and successful life.
Yeah, great.
And that's both in terms of clearly those academic outcomes, but much more broadly than that, the sense of who they are, what they're at, what they're about actually, and also those well-being strategies, which are so vital to all of us to kind of, go through
Survive
our
in
lives.
society,
Here.
Great.
Yeah, I think probably similar to that toolkit for the future. I'm kind of linked back to kind of the textiles route. So I was really fortunate to hear Vivienne Westwood speak a few years ago when she was at Derby Theatre. And one comment that really stuck to me when she was talking about education, she said about we often have this narrative of anyone can be anything they want. And she said, what a load of rubbish. She used a different word to rubbish, but that was the general gist of it. And she said, that's not school. That school is about finding out what your unique set of skills are and honing those skills so that you're ready for your future. And that's something that really kind of struck. It's something that I rolled that quote out for Year 11 Leavers Days and assemblies as well. And it kind of really resonated. Somebody, for her, didn't have the happy school existence she might have wanted to, but found where her place was.
Yeah.
And it's thrown a link to a Derbyshire native as well.
I love that. Everyone's
Very
good at
good.
something, can't they? And got that talent. It's just how we unlock that and find that. So thank you so much. That's just been really beautiful to kind of sit and listen to and to hear about your school and your passion. And the passion comes across so strongly. And that word community, I think, is a really important one, isn't it? That clearly you're working collectively as a school and across your community and coming and being part of the Inclusion Partnership. And thanks for everything you do to come and contribute to that. Including things like today, because it's not an everyday thing, is it, that we rope you out of school, after school, this is now that we're recording this one, to come along and join us. So thank you very much, Caroline and Mark. Thanks, Graham.
Thank you.
And we look forward to hearing more about your progress.
Thank you for having us.
That's a wrap for this episode of Because School Means More, brought to you by the Inclusion Partnership. We hope today's conversation gave you new insights, ideas and inspiration to help make schools more inclusive for everyone. Real change happens when we work together. So, if you're inspired by what you heard today, we'd love for you to be part of the inclusion movement. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Share this episode with colleagues and connect with the Inclusion Partnership. Thanks for listening.
Because school means more.